Ever since wildlife reserves were announced for Planet Zoo 2, I wanted to make a video about this, but there was a lack of information to really make a good video about this. Now, after weeks of my holidays and more details that found its way to the surface, I thought it's time to speak about it. But to have a good common ground, I'm going quickly through all the points that we already know and those we don't know. And then we're going to talk about the impact that Planet Zoo 2 will face with its introduction of wildlife reserves. Let's go into what we already know. So first of all, reserves are significantly bigger than zoo maps are. They will be huge and you can also create them on their own. You can create them from every single tree to all the whimsical little streams of water. You can do that. We also know that not all animals can be released, only those suitable for that certain biome and in a certain ecosystem that you want to release them. As for the types of animals, we do know that fish, birds, terrestrials and even squirrels will be able to be released in wildlife reserves. We also know that these animals will be able to breed and repopulate that wonderful ecosystem you've chosen them to give. We also do know that in addition to breeding, there's also going to be predation, including a deep managed and deep simulated herding behavior, where even the herd will save its family members from the predation. They also play a meaningful role in the career because every single thing that you yield as information from research will be beneficial to your zoo and even impact the habitats that you have in your zoos, which also confirms that there is at least a minimal staff presence, as they confirmed on the website, that is meant to have for research purposes only and has a good impact on your reputation and research stuff from your zoos. So that's as for what we know, but what we don't know is also equally interesting. We still don't know anything about exhibits, thus we do not know if exhibit animals will be featured in wildlife reserves. It's an interesting question because there are certain species that potentially will be exhibit animals that also would need to find their way in certain ecosystems. However, we still don't know yet. We also do not know if there will be guests in wildlife reserves. We know there's a minimal staff presence, which is good to know, but we do not know if there are going to be guest tours or like exhibition tours or whatnot, or wildlife safari tours. That is a common thing in real life wildlife reserves to gain money for research and stuff like that. It's not confirmed, nothing has been talked about, but we will talk about this in this video. And the last point, which is also going to be our segue in the first point of my video, is going to be that we do not know if there are going to be reserve-only animals. Yes, you heard that right. Potentially, there could be a certain type of animals that is only available in reserves. If you ask yourself why, well, let's dive into the video with my first major point. But before, to give you a bit of structure, we're going to talk about that, the very first thing, reserve-only animals. Then we will explore a little bit the possibility of guests in the wildlife reserves. And lastly, we're going to talk about the impact that I envision for reserves in the wider gameplay of Planet Zoo 2. And then we get yourselves into a certain conclusion, what I find interesting about these things and how they stand in relation to all the other stuff that we do know about Planet Zoo 2. Let's begin with the wildlife reserve animals only. This is coming from a deep wish that we are going to see certain animals that potentially wouldn't be able to live in zoos. And I don't want to go into all that discussion about citizens again and dolphins and whatnot, but I really believe that there is a very good chance to have things in the career mode, but also in the final game, that would allow you to have animals like dolphins or even orcas in the game without, going into this discussion. And by that I mean, just imagine there is a career level where you have an open lagoon to manage, where like a lagoon equals a wildlife reserve, and your job will be to create a lagoon and a wildlife research outpost that takes care of injured or endangered species like orcas, for example. You could even go into other whales, which is very interesting to say the least. And imagine you could have that area, which, by the way, is something that I tried to do in Planet Zoo 1 and failed terribly, even with mods and stuff. But I would love to see that, because this gives us the chance to have those animals in wildlife reserves only. And for you know, for Sandbox players like me, there could be the chance that you put your effort into making a wildlife reserve as a Sandbox park, and then you can also have them in there. So the requirement would be that you build them a lagoon or like an open water instead of a habitat or a tank or an aquarium, which, you know, kind of would tie into the discussion that is going on in the real world right now, without actually neglecting those beautiful animals. Because in all fairness, it's a game, and seeing the capabilities they have shown lately, especially with the zebra shark or with some other underwater species, it would almost be a crime to not have these gorgeous animals realized as a, well, digital version of themselves. It would be way too good to see them in action. And if we just for a minute forget about all these discussions out there, the wildlife reserves would actually create certain, you know, like things like that, and I would absolutely love that. But that's my point. I feel like there could be a type of animal, not only these, obviously there would also be chances for other animals as well that, you know, are in the discussion. And I'm talking about the polar bear, for example, who used to be an animal that we had in Planet Zoo 1, but this could become the possibility to not include this as a zoo animal, but as a wildlife reserve animal. I don't think this would be a super huge amount of animals that would end up as wildlife reserve only animals, and we all know that modders would be in there in a second to make them available as zoo animals in a bit, which is fair, and people could then do this. But from the standpoint of Frontier, they could avoid this discussion by saying, hey, that's not what we envisioned, and, you know, that's what modders did, and so everyone would kind of win in that sense what they wanted to do. So that's my stance on wildlife reserve only animals. It would be so cool to have. But let's move on with the next point, which is a potential presence of guests in wildlife reserves. And I thought about that for a long time. I tried to, you know, find certain things in the footage we already have, but as there is already confirmed, we will have some research outposts and minimal staff presence in these wildlife reserves. Obviously, my brain started to think about this even more. Will this also mean we are going to finally see vehicles in the game? Would this bring the final chance? Because we heard they are significantly bigger than zoo maps are already. And even in Planet Zoo 1, the size of the map, if you kind of try to do like an ecosystem, which I've done multiple times, having staff members run across the map is somewhat hilarious, not say ridiculous. It is absolutely not realistic at all. And if you consider these maps will be bigger, even so much bigger, and we've seen some cool footage now of the Highlands and so on, they are so big, it would look so freaking funny and not realistic and hilarious if they would still try to solve that by running staff members. I do mean we have to have vehicles in there. By having that, this would also offer the chance to you know, get tours or like safaris of the sort of safaris that could be really guided from like a wildlife reserve standpoint. So not like super touristy, but super expensive, exclusive things that, you know, not everyone can afford, but also you have more control over to just kind of ensure the tour does not distract your animal's presence in that wildlife reserve, and for the most part leave the animals alone in the way they do. I would love to see that because it's such a vital part of these things, and yes, it obviously would be better to not have guests in there at all and just leave the animals to what they do. But at the end of the day, also to maintain certain wildlife reserves like these, you know, there is a requirement to have money and to have reputation and whatnot, and this can be obtained by exactly that. Plus, people would absolutely love to build their own safaris and stuff in these wildlife reserves, simply because they are bigger, the maps are bigger, it's more spacious, and you could really do the realistic things you wanted to always do. I would absolutely love to have that because it just doesn't only offer the chance to have like a very meaningful second layer to the game, also for the guest. It could also mean a significant source of income for your project, for your very own career project or zoo assembly, whatever you do. That would be something so cool, so meaningful, would add a super cool element to the play, to the gameplay, and again, as I said, would obviously offer to have some really cool vehicle mechanics in the game. I could really see a safari tour not realized like it is in Planet Zoo 1 with that like fixed track, but I could really see like an invisible track like you have in the tours in Jurassic World Evolution 3, which in fact is exactly that. These type of tours is what I would love to see in here too, where people are like in the vehicles. I mean, at the end of the day, it could even be that people would spawn inside of the vehicles, similar to what they do in Jurassic World Evolution 3. I don't know if I would like this, to be honest. We reached a level of detail with the Planet Zoo 2 releases so far, what we've seen, that this would kind of not match the same kind of quality if that would be the case. But, you know, I'm here to be, to be surprised. That would be fun to see. And if not, would it be a deal breaker? Well, find out in the conclusion. Let's move on to my third point before drawing exactly that conclusion. Alright, so this one is a bit of a lesser specific one. It's a more on a meta level kind of thing. What is the impact of reserves to the game? And I must admit that this is the one big revelation that they have kept a secret from us when we visited Frontier March of this year. We've gotten a full tour, like a half day. They showed us everything. We went so much into detail with a lot of things. We did a very long Q&A, as I was able to tell you guys already, where we have given a ton of feedback, which I still cannot talk about because there are several things in, you could guess from that or whatnot. This is where we cannot talk about. However, they kept the whole reserve thing a secret from us. I gotta admit, that was so cool. I remember chatting to a lot of other creators who joined that early preview in the offices, and we all were going nuts. Like, how did they do this? How did they even keep that secret from us? Because it felt like they've literally shown us everything. But not only that, they also kept the exhibit stuff secret from us. So they seem to have quite a lot still going on behind the scenes that they can present to us. And this is why I was loving to do this video, because I think that the impact of these wildlife reserves, and now with all the information we have, it already seems kind of nice, and it's not only going to be a kind of excuse for certain animals to put in a wildlife reserves and go like, hey, here you can see your animal run around. It seems to be like a meaningful implementation to the game, which I really love. And also, we know that a lot of people have been creating wildlife reserves in Planet Zoo 1. However, and this is where the question is that I have with what is the impact. I do hope that there is a bit of a more, vice versa kind of stream. At the moment, it feels a lot that the wildlife reserves are like a bit of a one-way route, And by that, I mean you have your zoo and you will be able to release stuff into your ecosystem, and then pretty much that's like it. And then while the ecosystem grows, you get a bit of research points back with a bit of reputation input, and that's that. That would be a little too less for me, and I would love to see the impact being actually bigger. Also, well, in the last point, we didn't actually talk about that because I wanted to get this in as an impact for here. Maybe wildlife reserves would also offer you to have hotels or lodges or stuff like that close by to increase the amount of possible guests for your zoo, to have like an effect on that one. And equally so, giving you the option to obtain other animals to your zoo. So if you, for example, have succeeded in multiple release programs and reintroduction programs, that would then enable you to get various other animals in the game. It's something I talked about in my Planet Zoo 2 wishlist video quite a lot. I think many people always kind of complain that the game is too easy after having a certain amount of money, which many games suffer from. And I always threw in that idea of having a meaningful in-game barrier to obtain certain animals from the get-go, and that should not only be money. So money can buy it all, but at a certain point, let's say very heavily manageable animals, like if they would go for polar bears in zoos, let's put that one for example, or even elephants or pandas, the typical kind of animals that require an incredible amount of knowledge and care and dedication that you just cannot have when you start a zoo franchise, And so this is something I would love to see, that you can increase the speed to gain enough information to obtain these animals through these wildlife reserves. And equally, the more you succeed in your zoo, it will offer you more options to have in your wildlife reserves, and again, vice versa, so that research not only offers you more knowledge about animals, but maybe also unlocks other things for your zoos, like, I don't know, other viewing platforms, whatnot. It's just like a bit of a theory, but I would love to see the impact being a lot more of a interplay between wildlife reserves and zoos. And again, as I said earlier, make sure it's not a one-way route, because that's one of the little worries I have about this. Other than that, I really feel like it's so cool to have that target to develop your zoo and develop your animals in order to reach them in your very own wildlife reserve. In contrast to how it was in the past, where you click that button of reintroduce, and in all honesty, for me, that never felt connected or emotional. Like when I reintroduced animals into the wild, that was mostly to either gain reputation and credits or money. Well, that's basically it, you know. That was the only reason. I never did this to succeed a task or whatnot. Even though the task demands me to do that, that is fine. But like for me personally, if the task is, hey, repopulate that, like, I don't know, river delta in there and succeed by having, I don't know, 20 zebras and 5 lions and whatnot to make sure they start breeding, that is so much more meaningful and so much more of a real target I really want to work for. And thus, and this is something very interesting, what happens if I did this? Do I keep zebras in my zoo? Do I keep lions in my zoo? Or do I repurpose these habitats? I very much hope that they consider this, and especially in the Korea, I want to see certain, again, barriers and limitations that, as for when you have reintroduced, let's say, the lion pride, you will not be able to have lions in your zoo anymore. Like, I would love to see things like that. If that's the case, you have to then repurpose that habitat that you carefully built for them to something else, how it is in real life as well. I really would love to see that. But anyways, that's the impact of the wildlife reserves. Now let's draw a little conclusion before we end this video, and hopefully you guys enjoy it so far, and hopefully the conclusion does suit you as well. Let's move on. All right, now hear me out. Wildlife reserves, as I said earlier, have been a big surprise to me. Even though we have seen the game early on, even though we've discussed a lot of points, they were a pretty surprise to me. And by that, I mean a very positive surprise. This is something I haven't had on my list, and going through all what the other creators have done as guessing for Planet Zoo 2 before and speculation, it was never mentioned, like barely mentioned. Many people talked about bigger maps and the option to do more like wildlife reserve stuff, but no one really talked about it as a separate mode. I really like it, and I really, the more we learned about it, I really love it. I love the fact that you cannot release every animal in it. That's super good, because that is how it is in real life. It would be very hilarious if all of a sudden a Asian elephant is living together in an African savanna. That just doesn't make any sense, and so it's good that they have that. Really love that. Love the fact you can do research and stuff in there. Really love the fact you can create them on your own, because certainly I could have seen this being a limitation as well, because of the size they go for and then the performance of the game potentially. So I'm really happy we can create them on our own, and you know, the new tools obviously give us a chance to do so much more quicker than in the past, because doing wildlife reserve in Zoo 1 without any brushes and major improvements to the ground textures and stuff would have been a nightmare. So really happy to see that. And in general, it feels like a super meaningful addition to the game, which adds to the 2 other big additions of aquatics and birds. But that is kind of a full circle moment, because they have those 2 things in the game, that enabled them to do the wildlife reserve. So I'm really questioning if the wildlife reserves was something they wanted to do for such a long time already, but they were unable to, because obviously people would have jumped them in their faces if they would have done wildlife reserves in Zoo 1, and then they're like, yeah, you can have these certain animals, but you certainly have no fish, you certainly have no birds. That would have been super ridiculous, let's face it. So yeah, that's that, and I don't really have much more to say. I am super curious to learn more about them. There's, as you have seen, there's not really that much we don't know of yet, so I'm really hoping to get a bit more information about what guests do, and especially the exhibit animals. That is definitely the 2 things we need to know, and I would practically, I would love to see reserve only animals. What do you think about that? Let me know your opinion in the comments down below. Did I forget something? Is there any news I have missed out on? So let me know in the comments down below. And at the end of the video, something that is very important to me, because I've talked about that weeks and weeks ago when I had first started sponsoring, and this is no sponsored video, but it is a sponsored integration because it's so meaningful to me. I had some real issues with my back in the last month, actually, from doing all these videos, working on a desk all the day, and you know, and creating these videos for you is something I love, but I don't really like having pain in my neck and so on, which is when FlexiSpot offered me to get this lifting desk. I was just testing it, and it does actually help. So if you want to do me a favor and make me able to do these kind of videos for you guys again in the future, let me know that you click these links. Make sure to check it out for yourself. And frankly, we all get older eventually, just as our animals in the wildlife reserves will. We will get older as well. We will need these kind of things. As sad as it is to say, but this is really helpful in order to make sure you're fit. We are not made to sit the whole day, okay? And this is where that is. I'm gonna play that little ad just for you again, so you know where I'm coming from, and I hope you liked this video quite a lot. Thank you so much for watching. Now play the ad, and then afterwards I give you a bit of more wildlife reserve beauty shots that we have received so far, and have a good weekend. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know your opinion down below. Click the linky to FlexiSpot. Thank you all for your support. I talk to you in the next one. Okay, story time. For a while now, my left arm was kinda numb. After consulting some doctors, we found out it's because I'm sitting like a shrimp on my desk. Too much work, wrong posture, and, well, in fact, just way too much working while sitting. In addition to some neck training and posture correction, the doctor also asked me to grab a standing desk or a movable desk. And this is where my friends from FlexiSpot come in. I actually told them the story and asked if I could have a discount or anything, but they said, you know what, we're gonna send you the Easy 7 Pro, you test it and see if that works for you. And oh boy, does that work. This is a fantastic premium movable desk, and it has some really cool features. But honestly, I'm good at building in Planet Coaster, but I'm not good at building in real life. However, the setup was so easy, I forgot even to record most of the footage. It was so quickly set up. And in addition to that, the desk has some incredible force. You can see the footage of me being lifted up and down, which is crazy. And the best part is there's no wobble, no problem whatsoever. If that sounds good for you, use the link to save 150 bucks off that table to not feel like an old man like me. There are countless mix and match opportunities with like colors and desk shapes and forms and material. And the best part is, in this video, you even saw a little spoiler of a project what I'm running right now. Yes, you gotta go back to that and find it. But now check out the code, check out the store. It is absolutely worth it, and it does relieve the pain.